I was removing my makeup late at night when something impossible happened. My reflection started talking. Though silent, I could read her lips clearly. Never use a red umbrella. Strange warning. I didn't even own an umbrella, let alone a red one. But the next day, trapped at work by heavy rain, my supervisor James approached. "Use mine," he said, handing me a bright red umbrella. "What's wrong? Don't like my taste?" he teased. Before I could reply, Emma, our office flirt, snatched it. "If Sarah doesn't want it, I'll take it," she said with a sugary smile. "James, let's walk together. There's room for two." James just smiled, pulled out another umbrella from his bag, and walked off alone. Emma grumbled and left with the red one. I stayed behind, stranded in the lobby. Desperate, I dashed through the storm and arrived home soaked. While changing out of my wet clothes, my phone buzzed repeatedly. The office group chat was blowing up. Scrolling to the top, I froze. Rain killer strikes again in City Park. The news article showed a blurred photo of a body beside a red umbrella, the exact one James had offered. Shaken, I messaged Lisa privately. "Is this real?" "Of course," she replied. "Why wouldn't it be?" "Do they know who it was?" "No clue. Just what's in the article?" Getting no real answers, I stared at my bathroom mirror. "Who are you?" I whispered. But it was just a mirror. I splashed water on my face and tried to forget. But the image lingered. The next morning, Lisa rushed over. "Sarah." It was Emma. She was the victim. My stomach turned. Had the killer targeted her? Or the umbrella? The police questioned everyone, but I had no real ties to Emma. I never mentioned the mirror or the umbrella. I wasn't about to complicate things. Soon, work consumed everyone again. James seemed completely unaware of what had happened. Even when I hinted at it, he just looked confused. I convinced myself it was all stress-induced and buried the memory. A week later, as I removed my makeup again, something changed. My body froze. My head turned to the mirror on its own. This time, the reflection looked different, bruised, with a black eye. "Don't come home after 10 p.m. tomorrow," she mouthed. She said it twice, then disappeared. I panicked. With our big project, we'd been working until 11 p.m. every night. Coming home before 10 seemed impossible. I checked the mirror. It looked ordinary. I tapped the glass, checked online tricks for hidden mirrors, nothing. Normal. I finally gave up at 2 a.m. I had to be up by 7. The next day, I dragged myself into the office, exhausted. By 5 p.m., James clapped his hands. "Great work, everyone. Management's giving you the night off. We'll finish the project tomorrow and celebrate after." The room erupted in cheers. I sank into my chair, stunned. Was this my chance to make it home before 10 p.m.? Despite my exhaustion, I didn't move from my chair right away. My mind was racing. The mirror's warning echoed in my head. Don't come home after 10 p.m. tomorrow night. But that wasn't tomorrow, it was today. And somehow, management just happened to cancel our late shift out of nowhere. Coincidence? Or was something, or someone, trying to help me? I finally stood and grabbed my things, numb and confused as the rest of the team celebrated. Lisa patted my shoulder on the way out. "You okay? You look out of it." "I didn't sleep much," I mumbled. Outside, the sky was mercifully clear, no red umbrellas in sight. I walked toward the station, but halfway there I stopped. My instinct screamed not to go home just yet. I glanced at my phone, barely 7:30 p.m. I still had time to kill. I wandered into a late-night bookstore, one I'd never noticed before despite passing that street dozens of times. Inside, the air was warm, the lights soft, and there was a strange sense of familiarity. A bell above the door jingled as I entered. A woman behind the counter looked up from her book and smiled faintly. "Looking for anything in particular?" "No. Just browsing." I drifted toward the back. As I turned a corner, I froze. There, displayed on a central table, was a book titled Reflections and Warnings, When Mirrors Speak. My heart pounded. I snatched it up and scanned the first few pages. It wasn't fiction. It detailed accounts of mirror phenomena, lucid visions, premonitions, and even deaths avoided through mirror warnings. Some pages were heavily annotated in red ink, by a previous reader, maybe. Or the store owner? The last chapter was dog-eared. I turned to it. The title, "The Third Warning Means You Don't Wake Up." A chill ran through me. I slammed the book shut, paid in cash, and left. Back at the subway entrance, I checked the time, 8:40 p.m. I could make it home safely if I went straight. Still, every step felt heavier. Every shadow seemed to move just slightly when I wasn't looking. At 9:15 p.m., I reached my apartment building. I lingered in the lobby, staring at the elevator buttons. I wanted to believe none of this was real. That Emma's death was coincidence. That my reflection was just stress, lack of sleep, or imagination. But I knew better now. I took the stairs, slower, quieter. When I unlocked my door, I hesitated before stepping inside. Everything looked normal, keys in the bowl, shoes by the mat. But something felt off. I walked to the mirror in the bathroom and stared. My reflection was there. Just me. No bruises, no lip reading. I was about to turn away when something caught my eye. A faint fingerprint. On the inside of the mirror. I leaned in. Then, I blinked, and it was gone. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You made the right choice." I dropped the phone. My heart thundered. Was someone watching? Helping? Or was I part of something I didn't understand? I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every gust of wind outside, made me jump. I left every light on and sat upright in bed clutching the mirror book. By 6 a.m., I was still awake, still shaking. And then, just as the sun peeked through the blinds, the mirror started to fog from within, despite the cold, dry air. This time, the reflection wasn't mine. It was someone else. A stranger. Pale, drenched, eyes wide in terror. He mouthed two words. "She's coming." The mirror cracked. And everything went silent. I didn't scream. I wanted to, but something inside me knew that making a sound would somehow invite whatever had just cracked the mirror to come through. I backed away slowly, knees weak, heart racing. The crack snaked like a spiderweb across the glass, splitting my warped reflection. But the strange man's face, the one who had warned me, was gone. I stood in the doorway of the bathroom, frozen, unsure what to do. Call the police? And say what? That my mirror is haunted and a dead-looking man warned me someone was coming? No. I needed answers, not more people telling me I was crazy. I left the bathroom door wide open and spent the morning pacing the apartment, book in hand. The chapters all blurred together until I found something that chilled me to the bone. Greater than the third entity to appear in the mirror often brings with it a breach, physical or psychological. The cracking of the mirror is the beginning of a shift between realities. If the crack spreads, the barrier between worlds weakens. Sightings may increase. Physical danger becomes imminent. Breach? Realities? I snapped the book shut and looked back at the mirror. The crack hadn't grown. At least, not yet. That day at work, I could barely focus. My eyes kept flicking to reflective surfaces, windows, screens, even polished floors. Nothing strange. No warnings. No bruised versions of myself. Just my tired, haunted face. At lunch, I pulled Lisa aside. Did Emma ever say anything strange? About mirrors? Getting warnings before she died? Lisa raised an eyebrow. Are you okay? I'm fine, just curious. She tilted her head. She was acting weird the day before. Kept looking at her phone, mumbling something like it's just a dream, it has to be. I asked her if she was okay, but you know Emma, always brushing things off. That didn't comfort me. If Emma had received some kind of warning, she hadn't taken it seriously. And now she was dead. I didn't want to follow in her footsteps. That night, I didn't go straight home. I stayed at a crowded cafe until it closed. Then I lingered in the 24-hour pharmacy near my apartment, pretending to browse cold medicine until they kicked me out. When I finally got home, it was almost 2 a.m. I walked through the door slowly, expecting something. But it was quiet. I made tea, sat in the living room, waited. And then, at exactly 2:44 a.m., I heard a tap. Not from the window. Not from the door. From the mirror. I crept to the bathroom and saw it. A new message etched across the glass in delicate white script, like it had been written in frost. Don't trust James. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the book. I rubbed at the message, but it didn't smear. It was inside the glass again. James? My supervisor? The same man who offered me the red umbrella? The same one who had dismissed us right before the danger? I had tried to believe he was clueless, that everything was coincidental. But what if he knew? What if he was involved? The next day, I arrived at work early, trying to act normal. James greeted me at the elevator, flashing his usual easy smile. You look like you've seen a ghost, he joked. I forced a laugh. Rough night. He nodded and turned to walk beside me. You know, he said casually, you left pretty quickly after the meeting. Everything okay? Yeah. Just tired. He glanced at me sidelong. You've been acting a little off lately. If something's wrong, you can talk to me. My skin prickled. That voice. That same tone he used when he offered me the umbrella. Rehearsed, friendly. Too smooth. That night, the mirror cracked again. And this time, I didn't just see my reflection. I saw James. Smiling. Covered in blood. I stared at the mirror, breath caught in my throat. James stood there, his reflection, at least, calm, composed, with specks of blood on his white shirt. His eyes met mine, and for a second, I thought I saw the corners of his mouth twitch upward, like he knew I was watching. Then, just as suddenly, the image faded. The mirror returned to its usual cracked state, reflecting nothing but my pale, trembling face. I backed out of the bathroom, heart pounding. I couldn't keep pretending this was just stress. I needed help, real help. I grabbed my phone and called the only person I thought might believe me, my older cousin Ray. She was a therapist now, but she'd always had a soft spot for ghost stories and weird phenomena. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Sarah? It's 2 a.m. I need to talk, now. She paused. You sound scared. I'm not scared. I'm being warned. 10 minutes later, I was pacing in Ray's apartment, clutching a mug of herbal tea while she listened. I told her everything, from the first warning to Emma's death, from the red umbrella to James's reflection. I even showed her the book I'd bought from the strange bookstore. When I finally stopped talking, Ray sat in silence for a while, processing. I don't think you're crazy, she said gently. But I do think you're in danger. Thanks. That helps a lot, I said flatly. She ignored the sarcasm. You said the mirror cracked again. And that you saw James. Are you sure it wasn't just your mind playing tricks? No. It was clear. And it was him. Ray tapped her fingers on the table. Then we don't have much time. I blinked. What do you mean? She grabbed her laptop and began typing furiously. When I was in grad school, I did a thesis on symbolic hallucinations. There were a few fringe cases, people who claimed their reflections warned them of events before they happened. Most were dismissed as delusions, until 2 of the subjects died under mysterious circumstances. She paused, turned the screen toward me. On it was a grainy photo from a newspaper article. Local woman found dead after warning of mirror man. I read the subhead. Victim reported vivid mirror hallucinations days before her death. Police found a shattered mirror at the scene, with no signs of forced entry. My stomach dropped. What happened to her? I whispered. No one knows. Her therapist reported the mirror warnings, but police chalked it up to mental health issues and closed the case. Ray leaned closer. But there's a pattern, Sarah. The warnings escalate. First symbolic. Then personal. Then violent. My voice trembled. What stage am I at? You just saw a blood-covered man in the mirror. I'd say stage 3 is around the corner. I slept on Ray's couch that night, if you could call it sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw James's face smiling through glass, red-stained and quiet, watching. The next day, I decided to confront him. Not directly, I wasn't stupid. But I needed to know more. I started digging. First, I checked the employee directory. James's last name, Barrow. Then I searched social media, nothing. No Facebook. No LinkedIn. No college records. It was like he didn't exist before 4 years ago. That night, I returned to Ray's with a folder of printed pages. James Barrow isn't real, I said as I dropped them on her table. She looked through them, face growing more serious with every page. He's a ghost? Or something pretending not to be. I glanced at the mirror in her hallway. And froze. Because there, standing right behind me in the reflection, was James. And I wasn't even in the room. Ray, I whispered, not looking away from the hallway mirror. He's here. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing at the glass. What do you mean? I pointed, hand trembling. In the mirror. Behind me. But as soon as she stepped closer, the reflection changed. It was gone. My reflection returned, alone again, wild-eyed, breathing hard, sweat glistening on my temple. James had vanished as suddenly as he appeared. You need to leave that apartment, Ray said without hesitation. Whatever this is, it's tied to the mirror. We should stay here until we figure out how to sever it. I can't just vanish, I protested. People will ask questions. Then give them answers. Something believable. Tell work you're sick. That night, I emailed my manager a fabricated excuse about food poisoning. He responded with an automated get well soon, and that was it. One more piece of James's cold indifference. I spent the rest of the day going through the reflections and warnings book again. Ray helped me cross-reference every case. A pattern was beginning to emerge. 1. A warning appears in the mirror. 2. A near miss with death. 3. A second, stronger warning. 4. A mirror crack. 5. The reflection of the danger itself. 6. And finally, disappearance. But there was one exception. A woman named Eleanor who had escaped. She claimed she escaped the mirror's timeline by destroying the connection before the third warning. The book didn't explain what that meant. Frustrated, I paced the apartment. What does connection mean? The mirror? The place? The person? Maybe it's all of it, Ray said. But if James isn't who he says he is, that might be where you start. I nodded. Then I'm going back. Ray grabbed my arm. No, Sarah. I need something from that place. Something that proves James isn't human. If I can find it, maybe I can end this before it ends me. She reluctantly agreed, insisting on coming with me. At 2 a.m., we returned to my building. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Inside my apartment, the air felt wrong. Still, cold, dense like a vacuum. We didn't speak. We didn't breathe too loudly. In the bathroom, the mirror's crack had deepened. A jagged line now split it nearly in two. I opened drawers, cabinets, folders, anything that might contain something off. Meanwhile, Ray examined my phone and found something I hadn't noticed. Sarah, she said, showing me a text. A message from an unknown number sent at the exact time Emma died. One spared. One claimed. I never saw that, I whispered. It was buried in your notifications. We stood in silence until Ray muttered, Wait. What's that? She pointed to a small silver key inside my bathroom drawer. It wasn't mine. I'd never seen it. Tied to it was a note. Storage room B3. Midnight. Come alone. That's tonight, Ray said, voice barely audible. I shook my head. This is insane. I'm not going alone. You're not going at all, Ray said. We'll figure out something else, go to the police. No, I cut in. They'll never believe us. But I think this is the connection. This is what the mirror was pointing to. This room. I stared at the key for a long moment. Because deep down, I already knew. Whatever waited in storage room B3 wasn't meant to be found. But if I didn't go, I would never survive the third warning. Midnight. I stood at the edge of the basement stairwell in my building, the key gripped tight in my fist. The light above me flickered, casting long shadows down the concrete steps. Ray hadn't come. I told her I needed to do this alone, and though her eyes had filled with silent protest, she'd finally agreed. Storage room B3 was 3 levels underground. The deeper I descended, the more oppressive the air became. Cold, damp, still. When I reached the final landing, the silence was deafening. The hallway was lined with identical gray doors, each marked with stenciled numbers. B1, B2, B3. I hesitated, my heart beating so loud it echoed in my ears. I slid the key into the lock. It clicked with unnatural ease. The door creaked open. The storage room was pitch black. I reached in and flicked the switch on the wall. Fluorescent lights buzzed to life, dim, weak, but enough to see. Inside were shelves, boxes, dust-covered furniture. It looked like a typical storage room at first glance. Until I saw the mirror. It stood upright at the back, taller than me, framed in rusted iron. Cracks ran across its surface, spiderwebbing outward from the center. The air around it shimmered faintly. I stepped closer. Something moved inside. Not a reflection. A presence. And then I saw her. Emma, or something that looked like her. She stood inside the mirror, face pale, mouth open in a silent scream. Her eyes locked onto mine, pleading. I stumbled backward. Behind her, dozens, no, hundreds, of others stood in the glass. Faces I didn't recognize, men, women, children. All trapped. All screaming without sound. A loud click echoed behind me. I turned. James. He stood at the entrance, his silhouette blocking the light from the hallway. No smile this time. Just cold, calm emptiness. I told you not to dig, he said quietly. What are you? I demanded, voice trembling. He stepped forward, slowly. I offered chances, warnings. You ignored the first. You nearly ignored the second. Most people don't even get that much. You killed them. I didn't kill anyone, he said evenly. They chose wrong. You were supposed to take the umbrella. You were marked. Emma interfered. So she paid. I shook my head. Why me? The mirror chose you. He stepped aside, revealing the mirror again. You're still alive because it isn't done with you yet. My back hit the far wall. My hands found a rusted crowbar lying atop an old box. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed it and hurled it toward the glass. James's voice roared behind me, no. But it was too late. The crowbar hit the mirror dead center. A sharp crack split the room like thunder. The mirror shattered, not just into shards, but into ash like dust that blew outward in a burst of icy wind. The force knocked me off my feet. I hit the ground hard. When I opened my eyes, the mirror was gone. And so was James. No trace. No blood. No sound. Just the empty hum of a flickering light overhead. I scrambled to my feet, breath ragged. Something shifted inside me, a pressure lifting, as if a noose had been silently cut. Back upstairs, I burst into Ray's apartment, dirt-streaked and shaking. It's done, I gasped. I broke it. The mirror's gone. James is gone. But Ray didn't answer. She stared at me, pale, frozen, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. She pointed behind me. I turned. And saw my reflection in her hallway mirror. Smiling. But I wasn't smiling. My blood ran cold. I stared into the hallway mirror, watching as my reflection grinned back at me with an expression I knew I wasn't wearing. It was twisted, smug, patient, almost hungry. Ray stepped backward, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah. That's not you. No, I said, my throat tightening. It isn't. The reflection tilted its head in mock sympathy, then slowly raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. I didn't move. But my reflection did. It mouthed a single word. Soon. And then, it blinked. I hadn't. Ray grabbed my arm. We need help. Real help. Someone who deals with this kind of, whatever this is. I nodded, numb, as the false reflection faded, returning to normal. But the damage had been done. Destroying the basement mirror hadn't severed the connection. It had strengthened it. The next few days blurred together. Ray barely left my side. We kept all mirrors covered, with sheets, blankets, even newspaper. Any reflective surface became a threat. I smashed the bathroom mirror. Unplugged the TV. Hid my phone screen. Still, the feeling lingered. The feeling of being watched from the other side. Ray eventually found someone. A woman named Dr. Clara Venn. Former psychologist. Occult researcher. Paranormal survivor. Her office was hidden in a converted greenhouse at the edge of the city, surrounded by thick ivy and stained glass windows that muted the outside world into colors too soft to feel real. Dr. Venn looked at me like she'd already seen what I was about to tell her. "You've been chosen," she said, after I finished explaining. "Not possessed. Not haunted. Mirrored," Ray repeated. Dr. Venn nodded. "There's a phenomenon called the reflection tether. A false version of the self is born through a crack between realities, usually triggered by a moment of severe vulnerability or spiritual fracture." I blinked. Like, trauma? Or guilt? Or fear? Or simply being seen by the wrong force at the wrong time? She studied me closely. "You weren't marked by James. You were marked the moment you looked too long into the wrong mirror." She led us to a room at the back of the greenhouse. No lights. Just candles. In the center, a polished obsidian slab lay across the floor. It wasn't a mirror, but it reflected just enough to unsettle me. "We're going to attempt something rare," Dr. Venn said. "A severing ritual. But I warn you, Sarah, it only works if you're willing to confront what's inside. Not just the entity, yourself." The ritual began with chants I couldn't understand. Ray stood by with a silver bowl of water while Dr. Venn guided me to kneel before the slab. The reflection that appeared wasn't twisted. Not at first. It was just me. Tired, hollow-eyed, haunted. And then she smiled again. "Why are you so afraid of me?" she whispered, this time aloud, the voice echoing from the slab. "I'm not," I lied. The reflection leaned closer, her face darkening. "You should be. I've already replaced others before you. Do you know what happened to Emma?" I shook my head. "She saw too much. Tried to warn you." I gasped. She wasn't trying to take the umbrella. She was trying to stop me from taking it. The reflection smiled wider. "And now, I'm so much closer." Dr. Venn shouted, "Focus. Say your full name. Deny her claim." I looked straight into my own eyes. "My name is Sarah Lynette Graves. This is my life. You don't belong here." The reflection's skin began to crack, like porcelain under pressure. "This is only delaying it," she hissed. "You can't stop the third warning. You are the third warning." The mirror self began to splinter. Dr. Venn threw a handful of salt over the obsidian slab, and the flames surged. The reflection screamed. And vanished. The room went quiet. I collapsed into Ray's arms, gasping. Dr. Venn exhaled, wiping her forehead. "It's done," she said. But even as she spoke, I noticed something that made my breath catch. In the corner of the slab, just before the final reflection disappeared, my mirror self wasn't alone. She was standing next to James. I didn't tell Ray or Dr. Venn what I saw. Not at first. The image had been brief, almost a flicker, but clear. My mirror self wasn't gone. And she hadn't been acting alone. James had been standing beside her in the final second before the reflection shattered. His expression hadn't changed, still calm, still eerily patient. As if he knew this wasn't over. And maybe it wasn't. Back at Ray's apartment, I tried to convince myself the ritual had worked. The hallway mirror remained covered. No more whispers. No more cracks. But a heaviness lingered in the air, like the eye of a storm, quiet, yes, but deceptive. 2 nights passed without incident. Ray began to relax, talking about going back to work. I pretended to sleep better. I stopped checking every surface for reflections. But I hadn't let my guard down. On the 3rd night, my phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m. A message. No number. Just a blank contact. I opened it. There was no text. Only a photo. It showed me, asleep on Ray's couch. Except I wasn't wearing the clothes I had gone to bed in. The version of me in the photo had long, loose hair, like my mirror self always did, and wore a red silk robe. My heart dropped. I turned slowly toward the couch mirror Ray refused to cover, claiming it was too expensive. Nothing. I was alone. Or so I thought. A sound came from the bathroom, a faint click, like the latch on the medicine cabinet. I crept closer, barefoot, my breath shallow. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the low glow of Ray's salt lamp in the living room. I reached the bathroom. And froze. The mirror above the sink had no crack, no shimmer, no warning. Just a message written in condensation. Final warning. 11:11 p.m. I stared. My pulse thundered in my ears. What happens at 11:11? I whispered, but no one answered. I didn't sleep. I didn't speak to Ray that morning. I packed a small bag and returned to Dr. Ven's greenhouse office the second it opened. She saw the panic in my face and didn't ask questions. She just sat me down and handed me a cup of bitter herbal tea. I need to know what happens if the third warning comes, I said. You said no one survives it. She looked grim. That's because by the third warning, it's already inside. The reflection becomes the original. The two switch. My mouth went dry. How do I stop it? You don't. You trap it. I stared. Trap it where? In the mirror, she said. Before 11:11. You must make it choose you again, while being prepared to reverse it. But if you're too slow, if you hesitate. She didn't finish. I didn't need her to. She handed me a small obsidian pendant. This is your anchor. If it glows, you're still you. If it dims, you're not. By 10:30 p.m., I was back in my apartment. Alone. I had cleared the living room and placed a tall antique mirror, the only one I hadn't smashed, directly across from me. I sat down in front of it. The pendant hung from my neck, cold, heavy. Time passed slowly. 10:47, 10:58, 11:07. At 11:11, the room fell silent. Even the hum of the fridge stopped. And then, I saw her. Standing in the mirror. Me. But not me. She smiled softly and raised a hand. I copied her. She tilted her head. I mirrored her. She stepped forward. So did I. And then she whispered through the glass. Are you ready to trade places now? The pendant on my chest dimmed. And the mirror began to ripple. The mirror rippled like water, distorting my reflection into waves of shadow and light. I clutched the obsidian pendant, willing it to brighten, to fight back, but it only grew colder, duller, the black surface losing its shine. Across from me, the mirror self stepped closer. Her smile had faded. Now, she looked solemn, determined. You're tired, Sarah, she whispered. Don't you want peace? No more running. No more warnings. I shook my head. You're not me. She raised an eyebrow. Aren't I? I know everything you've hidden. Everything you regret. All the guilt you buried. Images flickered in the mirror, me yelling at my mother before her accident. Ignoring Emma's message the night before she died. The cracked umbrella untouched on the lobby floor. You've made mistakes, she said softly. But I can erase them. All of them. The pendant began to burn against my skin. I looked down, it was glowing, not with light, but with heat. Searing, unnatural heat. I screamed and tore it off. The moment it hit the floor, the mirror's self surged forward. The glass exploded outward in a wave of black mist, and suddenly, she was in the room with me. No glass. No barrier. Just two versions of the same woman. Breathing the same air. We circled each other. You can't trap me anymore, she said. You broke the mirror. You broke the balance. I broke the control, I shot back. You were never meant to cross over. She lunged. We collided, falling hard against the wood floor. Hands clawing, scraping. She was stronger than me, inhumanly strong. But she couldn't control my mind. Not yet. I fought back, kicking, twisting. My fingers found the pendant on the ground. It was hot, but it pulsed faintly. I grabbed it and pressed it to her skin. She screamed, a shriek that tore through the room, warping the walls, rattling the windows. Her skin cracked, splintered. And for a moment, I saw what lay beneath. Not me. Something older, hungrier. A creature wearing my face. No more warnings, I growled. You made the wrong choice. I shoved the pendant into her chest with both hands. She shattered like glass, her body crumbling into black shards that blew backward, sucked into the empty frame of the mirror like ash caught in a vacuum. Then, silence. The mirror, now empty, reformed, whole again, smooth, silent. But my reflection was gone. I stood slowly, panting, blood on my hands from where the glass had cut me. Then I saw it. In the corner of the mirror's frame, etched faintly in silver. One warning remains. The room spun. I thought I was done. I thought I had won. But there was one more warning left. And then my phone buzzed. One message. Unknown number. No contact name. Check Ray's mirror. My blood turned to ice. I ran. Down the hall. Out the door. Through the street. When I burst into Ray's apartment, she was waiting. Standing completely still. Facing her bedroom mirror. I called out, "Ray." She didn't respond. And then I saw her reflection. Smiling. But Ray wasn't. "Ray," I shouted again, louder this time. Still no response. Her body was rigid, breath shallow, eyes locked on the mirror like she was in a trance. But it was the reflection that terrified me most. It was smiling. Not a warm or comforting smile, but the same cold, calculating expression I had seen in my mirror self. I stepped forward slowly. "Ray. Can you hear me?" Her lips parted slightly. "She said you would come." My heart dropped. "Who?" Her head tilted toward the mirror, but her eyes remained distant. "She's been whispering for days, waiting." I thought it was just a dream at first. Until last night. I glanced at the mirror again, and for the first time, I saw what Ray was seeing. Herself. But not quite. The reflection was wearing Ray's favorite sweatshirt, but the color was off. Her hair was perfect, almost too perfect. And her eyes? Black around the edges, like ink bleeding into the whites. "You have to fight her," I said, grabbing Ray's shoulders. "She's trying to take you like she tried to take me." "She said you'd say that," Ray whispered. And then, her reflection moved without her. It reached toward the glass, hand stretching further than any mirror's surface should allow. "No!" I screamed, lunging forward just as the mirror began to ripple, the same way mine had before. The surface bent outward, stretching like a membrane ready to break. I grabbed the obsidian pendant from my pocket, the same one I had used to banish my own mirror self. But the glow was dim, weak, barely pulsing. "She said you used it up," Ray muttered, eyes full of tears now. "That you can't save both of us." I looked at the pendant. Then at Ray. The mirror self was halfway through now, her face emerging from the glass, skin porcelain smooth, eyes black as night. I had only one chance. And one choice. "Ray," I said quietly. "I'm sorry." Before she could react, I shoved the pendant into her hand. Her eyes widened, and the glow flared so bright it blinded me for a moment. A shriek ripped through the room. The mirror self let out a furious, inhuman scream as she was dragged backward, flailing, howling, the glass sucking her in like a vortex. The mirror shattered, bursting into 1,000 shards that collapsed in a ring around us. Ray collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "It's okay," I whispered. "She's gone. You're safe." The room was silent once more. We stayed like that for a long time. In the days that followed, we removed every mirror from our homes, screens, reflections. Anything that could act as a doorway. Dr. Venn warned us there may be others. Other versions. Other mirror entities waiting for vulnerable minds. But they couldn't reach us, not anymore. The mirror was broken. The bond was severed. Or so we believed. Until 1 week later, as I passed a boutique shop downtown, I paused by the window. Not to admire the display. But because in the reflection, I wasn't walking. I was smiling. And right behind me, James was standing there. Smiling too. Fade to black.